my second favourite anime is Fate Zero. Right, Joe, what's your number 2?
How long have you had that prepared?
20 seconds. Joe, what's your number 2?
For the third time tonight, a show that could have been in Lewis's number 5 spot, Bakano.
Yay!
Apparently the top end of my stuff is the bottom end of Lewis's favourite stuff, and I'm okay with that.
Oh no.
Just means, that's how our relationship works, Lewis. No, Bakano is probably in terms of sheer just storytelling potential, it's the best, story I've ever had. There wasn't a single moment of the entire show where I just didn't have a massive grin plastered on my face, regardless of what the tone was trying to be. It was just pure enjoyment from start to finish. I loved every single moment of the characters, mostly because I think they take every kind of character trope possible and then push it to its complete extreme. With Lad Russo, you got the most insane bastard who loves violence you'll ever see. You got Isaac and Mira, the lovable idiots, again, taken all the way to 11. You got literally Satan as a character's best friend because some dude just asked him to, instead of saying, "Oh, do you want to save me from drowning?" Just, what? And this entire thing on just because of one incident on a train called the Flying Pussyfoot. You can't not love it. It's outstanding.
Got 2 episodes in and it didn't grab me because apparently gangster shows don't settle with me properly. I can see why it would be excellent. I really can.
The thing is, the 2 episodes you get the gangster. No, it's perfectly fine. I just hate you forever.
It's fine, Daddy. It's you are the reason why we're getting a divorce, so it's fine.
I do that. Sorry to be the wedge in this particular relationship, but no, it's just
buddy, go for it.
There's a heavy focus on the gangster side of it. It's just pure, unadulterated enjoyment. You got the gangsters, but you also got the bullshit immortal. How would you call it, Lewis?
I would call it a tour de force in non-conventional storytelling. Is my number one go-to. The setting is quite important to it because this is the only this is a really weird accolade. The only show where I have unironically heard the term "the Orient" used. When Isaac and Mira are discussing things, the 1930s setting is important because of the speed of communication. I think that's the main reason it's there. But apart from that, it is just plain a tour de force in non-linear storytelling.
Yeah. One of the things I also love about it is the fact that it really hammers home the point of you don't need an ending. I know it's very important for you, Alastair, but I don't think that shows need endings at all because, as they brilliantly put it, it leaves more to your imagination. You can take a story as far as you want to, as long as you're invested in a character.
Now, look at that mouse. Imagine what it's been doing since all this has been going on. Okay, I've got it in my head. See? Wasn't that more satisfying than anything we could have come up with? What a show! And then it kept on going. Sorry.
The reason I like endings is the fact I like to feel closure.
Completely fair.
I'm definitely with Alastair on this, if only because Bakano's ending sucked.
I felt closure when Lad Russo wailed his fucking one limpless hand out of the fucking air.
Come on, guys, take me in!
I felt closure rewatching the first episode.
Yes. That's when they all meet up in the train station. So.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alastair, as you were saying.
Yeah, no, I just basically that I like to have closure and stuff. There are exceptions to the rule where I would say that some shows don't require an ending because it's not about that. But a lot of the times when a show has a distinct plot and story, you want to know how that story ends and how you bring closure to those characters and their storylines and whatnot. The thing is, I like to imagine my own things, but that's my own things. If it's somebody else's story, I would like to know how they envisioned it ending. I don't want to slap bang my personal ending on the thing. But that's just the way I am. That doesn't necessarily mean that other people don't want to do that or have an open ending. I can understand why people kind of want a more open ending so they can keep the story open and have start using their fantasy and working out how things keep going. Just for me, I like having a nice if it's a show that I want to view as an entire package, I like to have it with a nice little bow on the top of it, just like sealing it off and just being like, here's your nice enjoyable package of just stuff.
I do agree with you. I think that you are. How do I put it? I think everyone's entitled to an ending. Certainly, an ending to the most interesting bit of the story. I'm always a big proprietor of the fact that if you're telling if you're telling a story which is not as interesting as something else that happened in characters' lives, you should be telling the most interesting thing that's happening in their lives. So in Bakano, the ending happens when Saint Germain says, "Look at the mouse, look at it," and then she goes, "Yeah," and you go, "Yeah," and that's the ending, done. And then it keeps going, and then it's a bad ending. Whereas I think you're entirely right, Alastair. I think you are owed an ending to the most interesting part of the story, and that's not the last time I'll mention that in my list.
Well, it's as just going off. Yes, it's the most interesting part of the story. So if the most interesting part of the story happens to be the characters, you want the ending to the character arc that they are going through.
Yeah,
not necessarily the ending to the plot, but because it's the character, you want an ending to their character arc.
I did, in fairness, want to see Lad Russo kill everyone and then his wife.
I think he will. But that's almost the point of Bakano, where one day he probably will, but that is no longer the most interesting part of these character stories, so we don't need to see it. You can imagine what happened.
Yeah, I like that a lot. The fact that
I've stolen it myself to use in my own games.
It does a good job of tying things into a situation. It does a great job of putting things, despite using so many time periods, it does a great job of tying it all into one, to the point that even though it can be a bad thing, the fact that the different time periods can blur so easily, it's also not a bad thing in the fact that it just feels so naturally flowing, because it almost is one story over that period of time.
It is strange how it's the story is completely disjointed in the fact, your episode format, you're constantly flipping between the past and present, and yet I agree, it is completely just one flowing story, and it just works so well for that.
The biggest thing about the non-chronological story is the fact that you have to keep a track of who's immortal when, which is a fucking nightmare.
It's great, though.
Also, Claire Stanfield clearly has to be a superhero to be able to actually do half of the shit he does.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Fucking Vino is
the rail tracer.
Vino is the most ridiculous character, and I fucking love him.
He's an acrobat. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, you just go to the circus, then suddenly you're the world's greatest assassin.
There's that and there's definitely putting your balls on the table, and the first thing you see of Lad Russo is when he blows Chekhov's head off with a shotgun.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
and then
that's pretty
leaves.
great.
And it's like, well,
I just didn't like the way he thought that I couldn't kill him.
Yeah, I just cannot resist killing someone who looks like they're about to not be killed.
I genuinely remember watching Bakano with my dad, and my dad loved it. And during that scene with Lad Russo in the very first episode, it happened. My dad shot wide eyes, sat back a little bit, and just went, "Oh, okay, all right,
Yeah.
let's watch."
That's what we're going for. Let's keep going.
The best scene in Bakano is him skipping down the hallway, wondering if they've got machine guns.
Yeah, as he's giddy.
Yeah, and that's the longest corridor on a train you've ever seen. But my God, is it effective?
I do also love him bare knuckle beating a guy to death despite having 2 machine guns available.
And while quoting 1930s boxers and berating him for not knowing who they are while he beats the shit out of him.
Not giving him a chance to even say that he knows who they are, just keeps beating him.
Definitely the best character in the show, definitely. Best psychopath in anime. I'll admit that Claire is a bit of a deus ex machina when it comes to, and he beats Lad. Why? Because he does. Then again, there's a whole bunch of philosophy going on with him, and so on.
He's got to marry that girl he only just met.
To be fair, they are very
She said
sweet.
yes.
To be fair, it's the 1930s, mate. She's French. It's a miracle.
Shit,
she's
you're
not
right.
dead.
He saw her ankles.
It's a miracle she's not dead. But yeah, no, Bakano's a very lovely program indeed. Oh, I can't even fucking read the list of who's going next. So, Ben, is it you next? For fuck's sake. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Mate, I think you'll find it's Blalister.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I feel like I've taken this too far.
Oh, no. Not Blalist.
That's Ben.
So next up on my list is a show that I hold very dear to me for many reasons. It's a bit more personal than other things we talk about. Even though we talk about personal stuff, shit, I'm wrong. But yeah, it's Sangatsu no Lion, or March Comes In Like a Lion, which is about a young boy who plays shogi, who lost his family at an early age, and his whole life pretty much revolves around shogi at this point, and these three sisters whose house he goes over to for dinner occasionally. Now, with most of the shows we talk about, I feel compelled to discuss the anime in more of a mechanical way. Like, the animation was nice, the characters are well developed, the plot was inconsistent, that sort of stuff. But that's because most anime feel crafted, like a specimen or something to be examined. However, March Comes In Like a Lion never felt like that to me. It felt like something bigger. It felt more real. And so I can't help but say something more personal, more real about it as well. At its surface, it's an anime about shogi, but at its core, it's a coming-of-age story about someone overcoming depression. Ray, the series protagonist, is a deeply and inherently flawed person. He's timid, he's incapable of speaking his mind or getting his feelings across, and he's unhappy with his role in life in so many ways. Many characters don't understand why he's this way, and indeed, for someone so gifted at shogi and with such a loving family, even though they are a foster family, you can understand why others may think, why are you unsatisfied with this? He's a teenager, so it could merely be an irrational fit of teenage angst or anything like that. So they patronize him going through. But there's so much more to the main character than so many people give him credit for, and I feel this is the same and reflective in reality. He never had a real life nor a youth, hence why he goes to school in such an aimless search of one. He has nothing he can relate to in life but shogi, and even that brings him pain, as his thirst for victory in shogi only drives his opponent into disappointment and despair. He feeds on other people's happiness to give his own life meaning, as shogi is the only thing that gives his life meaning at this point. Now, this isn't meant to instill feelings of pity in the viewer in any way. Ray's problems, while significant, they're real. They aren't much different from what everyone else in the same world is dealing with. His eventual mentor struggles with fears of disappointment and with chronic sickness that disrupts his ability to play, and even Hinata, the carefree younger sister figure to Ray, is dealing with issues of love and anxiety of growing up. Ray's journey is not just about recognizing and facing his own problems, but also in understanding the pain that is a normal part of life, and something that everyone deals with, and learning to take that with stride. There's no plot with a specific starting point and ending point. It's rather a moment in time, a piece of Ray's life, and all the people that are around him, all the supporting characters. His depression persists, and he still remains an imperfect and flawed person. Even if now he has friends and family by his side as the show progresses, he's still searching, still running, still trying to better himself in some way. And maybe it'll change by the end of the show, maybe it won't, maybe he'll just keep being depressed, but he'll have improved in some ways, and that's fine. I don't believe there's anyone in their life, even on their deathbed, who's ever been a complete person. We start imperfect and we'll end imperfect, and this show doesn't throw this point at you. It builds it up in a gradual way, where you, alongside Ray, learn to accept these imperfect parts, not just of him, but as yourself as well. And as you slowly build this up, you eventually realize and find a way to accept yourself as a perfectly imperfect you. Now, people will often describe their favorite pieces of fiction with vague terms such as brilliant or life-changing, but March Comes In Like a Lion to me was not life-changing. At least not in a sense of it developing a different personality for me, a different way of thinking, or in creating new passions. What it instead did was it gave me the tools to understand myself, and more importantly, why I'm here and why I feel the things I do in life, why I have these thoughts, these feelings, these moments of such sadness and anguish. And to me, that was the greatest answer a show or anything could give me at all. And the whole show as a whole, it's a statement that unhappiness is okay. Being depressed and unsatisfied or stressed out, it doesn't make you weak. Not at all, no. It makes you human. And that's why I love this show so much.
silence speaks volumes.
I don't want to add anything to that. I just want to leave it as it is.
In which case, shall we move on to Alastair?
You know I like martial ones like in Like a Lion, but I'm not adding anything to that. I'm just going to let that sit as it is. That's good enough to sit on its own.
Then let's move on to Alastair. Alastair, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is... This is going to be emotional hour. My number 2 is, in my opinion, the best romantic comedy ever made in anything, not just anime, but in literally any single piece of media ever. And that is Toradora. It is a wonderful 26 episode anime. I'm hoping I'm right with that number. Of just a nice length, completely enclosed story where they start off with the premise and keep that premise up until the end, and have a wonderful development of a wonderful cast of characters that you come to adore and love, and doesn't really change from beginning to end. One of them does get added a few episodes in, but it's not that much, like not that far in. It's completely heartwarming, sad and depressing at times, of like the emotional roller coaster that you go through with these characters. And all of these characters, the best way I like to describe it they are all characters to some degree. They are fakes, because they all put up a persona in some degree and express a fake version of themselves that eventually gets broken down and seen through to show their inner personality, which makes you understand them much more, to a degree of you understand why they were going through all of this stuff, why they were making these decisions that they were making throughout the show, what emotional journey each one of them went through. It's just, it's hard to describe. After I watched this show, I've been looking tirelessly to find another show that does the same thing to me that this one did, and I haven't found it. I can't find a single show that gets... Some get close, but nothing reaches the same level to me as that show does. And I do not know why, but it just hits me every single time I watch it, and I've watched it every single time. Ever since I watched it the first time, I have watched it every single year religiously. I watch it at least once a year. Because it is just such a wonderful story of these characters that are trying to work out what the meaning of true love is. And they find it at the end of the show, and it's just gloriously well done. And I also think it ends really, really well. Even if the ending is predictable, I don't care. It's about the journey of how they reach that ending. You basically know what the ending's going to be at the start of the show, but it's about how they get there, and the way they get there is a glorious emotional ride. Not just for the main characters, but also the side characters as well. I did talk about this this was on my list last time, and I have talked about it before, but it is a wonderful show, and I'm so glad the light novels have finally been licensed, because that means I can buy them. Does anybody want to say anything?
It's a really good show, and I really like it. It's another one where the characterization is so strong that you come to love the characters all across the whole board. Like, even at the start when they're building their pact to, fall in love with the other ones, obviously the side characters are slightly weaker than the main two, but you still push and you still want them to be together, but at the same time, in the back of your mind, you want the main two to be together. But it does such a great job of separating that, keeping it out of your mind, but also at the same point still bringing it back to the forefront, so it's still there as a thought or want, something that you want out of the show, but without inadvertently throwing it in your face and saying, "Oh no, you should ship these, whoa!" And the writing for that is incredible, to be able to do something like that.
I mean, it is, as you say, it's like the fact that it's definitely a show where I think and I feel that this is the show is actually like the actual light novels. It's 10 light novels, which surprised me when I actually found out the number of light novels it is. And the show covers all 10 light novels. And it's the fact that obviously the writer of this show had already worked out the entire story before she even started writing the damn thing. Like, she knew exactly where everything was going to go, what character arc every single character was going to go through. And it's still, to this day, there are two moments that hit me more than anything. And one is obviously the Christmas episode, which is the moment that Tiger finally realizes that, oh shit, I'm in love with this guy. It's the moment where she just sits there and she starts crying. And she doesn't understand why. It's because her body has reacted before her mind has. And her body's realised that she's in love with this guy. And her mind takes a few seconds to work it out. And then she works it out. And then the floodgates just open. And that's just it. And then at the very end, when Minarine has to put her face on and basically goes, like, it's fine, you two go. You, like, run away. Like, go and do your thing. And then as soon as they leave, she grabs Army's shoulder and literally just, I need, like, I'm about to collapse. And that's the moment where she lets go. And she basically goes, I've been putting up the front for so long, I have to let go now. And she just bursts into tears because she's like, I've let the guy that I like go with my best friend. And I had to do it, but it's killed me inside. It's just those moments that just impact, but then also you have this wonderful story of comedic moments and laughs throughout, and it's just wonderful.
It really is, and it's such a great show and such a testament to the feelings of each of the characters that you get that bit where, despite all this, she genuinely loves that character. She genuinely loves him, and she's just like, despite it all, she wants his happiness above her own. And that speaks leagues and bounds above any other bit of, like, any other show where it's, oh, here's the drastic, amazing confession where they do everything out. This person put off their confession for the other's happiness. And that shows more love than anything like that could. Which just adds, like I say, the characters steal the show. They really do.
Yeah, it's just like and it does all the classic high school drama things that it does. Like it does a summer trip, it does the school festival, but it uses each one of those situations for a specific moment. To drive home the story. Like the school festival arc, the whole point of that is it's about Tiger's father, and it's about her relationship with the father and how much of a Ryuji is an idiot, of the fact that he's trying to push his own ideals, of the fact that he had a shoddy father who basically has nothing to do with him because he was a gangster who ran out on, basically got his mother pregnant and then fucking left. And the fact that he's trying to put his own ideals onto Tiger, basically saying, I didn't have a dad, you have one, why don't you be with him? And not seeing the fact that this dad is an actual douchebag. And all of that stuff. Every single one of these moments and almost tropes are used as a platform to actually tell a story. Which a lot of shows don't use because they just go, oh, we need to put this trope in because it's a classic thing, and people want to see girls in swimsuits, and people want to see the school festival, and people want to see all these sorts of things. And it's the fact that they use them as platforms to actually do shit and tell stories that all just cohesively join together and make a wonderful romantic comedy. Yeah, I will stop now because otherwise I will go on for another hour.
Yeah, I think at this point a lot of us could go on for about an hour about the shows in our top two. Huey boy, what's your number two?
Right, so my number two is the show that Lewis thought was number one.
Oh no!
Yeah, it's the Monogatari series.
That wasn't the one, you daft shit. When I was talking about TNA, I was talking about your number one.
Oh, right, fair enough. No, it's the Monogatari series.
About the flute!
Anyway, no, it's the Monogatari series. Unlike Fate series, the Monogatari series is kind of one continuous thing, so I can't really pick a specific point, but if I did, it would be back at Monogatari because it's the best.
There we go, you picked it, well done.
Yeah, but anyway, right, the Monogatari is, I'm not even going to explain the plot because
It's impossible.
It's kind of impossible.
It's not impossible. I'll hazard an attempt if you shall.
Don't worry about it. It's about
if you shall allow me. A teenage.
He's not allowing you.
A teenage exorcist exercises lollies.
No.
He is a
I mean,
vampire.
no. Yeah, there you go.
Hugh, can we kill him yet?
No, not really, because I think he's doing a thing.
Prove me wrong.
All right, you want to go and watch the rest of it with me, buddy?
All right, Hanakawa. She's not a lolly. He exercises her.
Nah, right, mate. Did you see her ID?
Yes,
Wow.
she actually shows it.
Hugo, please.
No, it's fine. Apparently, we're having this conversation.
Now, Hugh, please go.
I'm going to play some. No, I'm kidding.
I'm silent. I mean, I'm just saying.
It's about a guy who deals with supernatural stuff that happens to exist. The whole plot is once you've experienced something supernatural, other supernatural stuff will start happening to you. So he experiences a vampire, and then suddenly all the other supernatural stuff starts happening around him. It's pretty much a show that kind of revels in itself, gets a bit weird at times, very weird at times, in fact. It's got some of the strangest choices in all of anime, where I sit down and look at a scene happening and wonder, why is this scene happening? It does not have any bearing on the plot whatsoever, because Niso Isin just felt like writing that scene. It just kind of happens. But the reason it's my number 2 is because it's a show that when I was getting into anime after about a year, I decided to watch a show a night, because I was like, well, okay, an episode a night, not a show a night. An episode a night, and I picked up the Monogatari series, and I went, right, I'm going to watch an episode of this a night. I watched the first couple of episodes, and it's the only time in my entire life where I've wanted to go to bed, because OCD weird me when I can't just watch more of it in the day. That would be cheating. So instead, I would sit around and be like, oh, it's 9:30. Oh, I can go to bed now, sit in bed, watch an episode, be really excited, go to bed. Repeat the process over the entire summer. It's really good. It's the show I still look forward to the most, because it's still being made, because every single version book and every single plotline gets animated at some point by Studio Shaft. So I'm waiting for Zoku Owari Monogatari, which is coming out in like a month and a half in TV format. Can't wait for that. Once that's done, we're done with seasons 1, 2, and 3. We move on to Monster Season, which I can't wait, because it's like prequels and sequels, and that's going to be awesome as well. We've got like 8 more books to go, and he's still writing the bloody things. I just like it. I really a lot. It's got excellent writing. It's got some of the best writing in all of anime. It's got some of the best dialogue in all of anime. It's the only show that sits down and goes, hey, we could have an action scene here, or we could have a guy talk with a girl in an airport for an entire 24 minutes.
I fucking love that episode!
And you're gonna love it. And when it does do action scenes, it goes, oh, we're doing an action scene, right? All right, cool. Let me show you an action scene. And it goes ahead and does it full ham. So it's like, we need a scene where, Araragi gets burnt alive because he's a vampire and he walks out in the sun. At which point, Kizumonogatari turns around and goes, well, I can't hear you. I'm too busy animating the best looking fire in all of anime, and then just goes back to writing it.
That bathroom scene is fucking amazing, and it's the moment Kate turned around to me and went, man, that episode was really boring, and I was sat there, and that was
you don't get it.
No, that was the moment I sat there and went, maybe you can't knit during anime!
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Monogatari is the show you have to pay attention to the most. You can't not pay attention to Monogatari, unfortunately. It isn't a show where you can switch off. It doesn't have a dub. It is very fast-paced. It is very talky. It has, if you want to, bits where you can pause and read extracts of the novel that they put in the middle of the show, because they want you to read that stuff. But they also know they can't put Aragi's inner monologue into the show because it will disrupt the flow. So they pop it in by going, boop, it's there. Just a good way of doing it. It's a very Shaft way of doing it. I like Monogatari a lot.
I would have enjoyed the show a lot more dubbed, I will say that, because I actually got annoyed when I watched
wrong.
Let him talk.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. That
was a joke.
That's fine, I'll keep it to myself.
I wasn't expecting it to be taken seriously, I'm sorry.
It's fine, I'll keep it to myself. That's right. Now I'd enjoy it more dubbed, just because I have watched all of Bakemonogatari and the 3 movies, and so I watched those. I got continuously frustrated at the fact that I couldn't pause because I was sat with people, and the fact that I was I didn't feel like I was expected to keep up with the flashes on screen, but like the font is obviously smaller than
Yeah, it
I
does
I
very
I
weird
assume
stuff.
the
I'd say.
kanji. I assume it's kanji symbols.
It's more than that. It's at times entire page extracts from the book where it just goes.
Jesus.
So I couldn't read that. I couldn't. No, I want you to bear in mind. Not saying it's a bad show. I volunteered to watch those 3 films with reason, but I couldn't access that. I couldn't access the humor, and I don't know if that's a Japanese thing or just it's perverted
It's
humor.
weird.
And I didn't get on with it.
It's weird. I will agree with you.
It was weird humor. I didn't get on with that. There were some tropes I just didn't get on with, and like it's such an inherently Japanese product to the point where it kind of annoyed me that I was expected to keep up with it when I don't understand Japanese folklore, language. I can't read frames per second.
I will say, Alastair earlier said Konosuba is a Marmite anime. Konosuba is not a Marmite anime in any way near the same concept that Monogatari is. With Monogatari, you either adore it and think it is one of the greatest pieces of media ever created, or you look at it and go, it's alright, but no.
I'll have to politely disagree because I'm kind of in both camps. The bits that I got, I loved. The bits that I didn't like, I hated.
I got introduced to Monogatari in Series 1 of University, and
Series
Series 1 of University.
Oh my god, my life is an anime.
What about Season 2 of University?
It's the filler arc season.
In first
Oh,
year
no.
of
No, that was
university.
season 4.
When's the obligatory tournament arc?
No, it's the Hot Springs episode this summer.
Oh.
Oh!
I guess season 4, when the projects were happening, was the tournament arc.
Oh yeah, that was tournament arc. Yeah, so in first year of uni, I got introduced to Monogatari, and I genuinely bought it because Miles showed me the first 2 episodes, and I fell in love. The second episode, I genuinely took I pushed back in my seat and I stared at the screen at the moment of realization that it was her emotional weight that she'd have to fight and come to deal with, and was like, this anime's got something special. Because I was already enjoying it, and that was the moment that it really showed me something above and beyond.
Ben, you want to play Who's a Bigger Fan?
We can.
How much Monogatari do you actually own?
Do I actually own?
Yeah, because you said you went and bought it. How much?
Poor fag Ben. Come on, share.
Oh no, poor fag Ben. No, I've got. You're gonna win. I know you will.
Yeah, I know.
Because I've only got up to second season in the Blu-rays and DVDs. I do own back a Monogatari 4 times due to various different people buying it me and me buying it myself.
Nice.
And I own the first 4 novels.
Hang on a minute, I'm just gonna... All of it.
Okay, yep, that's what I was expecting.
All of it that's available in the UK. Anyway, go.
So as to continue with my story, I genuinely continued watching it, and I still remember the moment everyone left my room. It was like...
Toothbrush.
Because we used to watch stuff when we were going in uni time in first year. And I just sat there and I went, I'm going to watch this. And so I stayed up way later than I should watching Monogatari. And I woke up in the morning and went, you know what? Your first year of university is not better than this show. And skipped an entire day. Miles also skipped an entire day. And we finished the first season and then marathoned all of Madoka Magica. And that is a fantastic day because I then immediately bought Nisei and loved it. And just continued watching the whole thing. And I still remember every moment, such as me, just grinning into ear, fuck my life, ear to ear, the entire airport scene.
Is this in season 2?
Yeah.
Of
No,
your life?
in second season. Oh,
Of
in
your
season
life?
2 of my life. Yeah, well, it went throughout the first, year. No, it was all in first year that I watched.
That's all in
the whole
first
thing
season.
and stuff, yeah. And so, all of that, and I remember the whole thing, the end of Hachikuji before Owari came out. I remember the moment I was sitting there,
I still get flashbacks.
so emotional, sat in my room when my dad walked in and just being like, nah, it's fine, you go, I'll be okay.
What are you crying about? The lolly kissed him and died. What?
Good.
I remember every moment of watching that show because it meant so much and was such a good fucking show.
I just like the show. Doesn't even mean anything to me. I just like it.
This is genuinely the only show that I could actively say could replace anything in my top 5 list and fit in any of the slots. And the only reason it hasn't is because of the fact that it sort of slipped off because it meant so much the first time that on subsequent watches it's had less impact. And unfortunately that's the reason why I put it lower. But that doesn't mean anything less that this show, the first time I watched it and even necessarily the second, it was astounding and I love it.
Lewis,
What?
you're number one.
What about it?
Exactly.
Yes.
Outstanding.
My number one was one set in the near future. There's powers. There's a protagonist who doubts himself and leads a double life. There's several mental side characters. It's Fire Punch.
It's Phantom!
It's Code Geass.
Phantom of the Phantom!
It's Phantom of Phantom. It's also Fire Punch. It's also Darker Than Black. Ha! I have on several, I'll say, different occasions tried to explain how much I enjoy this show. I don't think any of them have worked, particularly Anime Society, when I tried to convince people to watch it. Nah, just didn't work.
You convinced Alastair?
Yep, I watched the whole thing.
I convinced Alastair. I'll take that as a win, actual win. But
I now own it.
I watched the entire thing on a plane ride to Japan.
I also own it 3 times due to people buying it me as a gift.
due to various different bits. I first heard of Darker Than Black when I was in year 12, and my friend Yusuf told me about the show and showed it to me on my anime list and said I'd like it. This is the same guy who recommended me Area 11. I did, as it transpired. I first watched it in Series 1 of Uni. It was actually Ben's Series 2. There's a bit of a weird crossover there. Basically, we watched it with my friend who said I'd like it, and then we watched it in my university hall, and I did. And I'm looking at it right now. There it is on my desk, and I've given it out to various people. I've gotten my NQT mentor at work to watch it. He quite liked it. As far as why I like it, I mean, what do you want
What's
from me?
it about, Lewis?
Again, that's almost half the difficulty, because it's set in a near future where there's 2 gates, and in gates physics doesn't work, and emotions come to life, and things that are unreal become real, and philosophies that you only think could happen in your mind happen every day out there. You hear voices, loved ones come back to you. And coinciding with that are the appearance of the contractors, who are theoretically emotional superheroes, who have got a superpower and they've got a price to pay for it, often metaphorical for their ability, and often related to their previous life. Earlier on, they've got less to do with it. Later on, they have more to do with it, like a character has to eat cigarettes, because when they smoked, their kid died when they choked on cigarettes. And the series essentially is about these contractors who are basically super people, thinking they're emotionless, and it turns out they have emotions. They discover their humanity. That's essentially what it's about. In between, there's philosophy, emotion, awkward combat, jazzy music, a weird setting, characters that are doing stuff off camera that you suspected they were doing, but you never quite knew. Characters who will happily kill children because those children are working for enemy agencies and they have their own thing going on. One of them will begin a backstory and they get instantly killed by a spear that was thrown at them. A very foreign cat. It's just, I don't really know how to describe Darker Than Black, because it didn't make me feel particularly emotional. It just made me feel like in awe, if I'm being honest, that someone could have made something so perfect. Like, just someone got it. Someone got the ephemeral it when they made that thing. I don't quite know how they caught lightning the way they did, but they sure as fuck burned it onto a disc. The ending's near perfect, and I don't get why people... Maybe, you know what, if I'm being honest, maybe that's the reason why people don't get it the way, I do, to an extent, is because I know so many people who said they detest the ending or they don't get it, whereas I got the ending instantly. I understood it perfectly. I understood exactly what it all represented. And maybe that's because I was a bit more in tune with it. But it ends with Hay, the main character, after he discovers he's human and doesn't want to kill people anymore, not making a choice, and then he runs away. And then the story ends, as far as I'm concerned. There is a season 2, but it came out years later, and no one likes it anyway. And the very final scene is on the police commissioner who's been following Hay this entire time, who's slowly come to like him as a friend. And they're gone. That's it. You don't see Hay and Yin again, and that's fine because that's the most interesting part of their lives done. It's just good. Like I know it's a real struggle for me to sort of elucidate this stuff, but the only reason I'm struggling to explain it is because I think I've tried so many times now and no one got it. Just no one understands what I see in this thing, but I do. And for all of my incredibly high demanding, fucking standards that people claim that I seem to have, Darker Than Black's perfect. It's just perfect. Has everything. Yeah, that's pretty much it, really. I'd prefer, if I'm being honest, if you guys could talk about Darker Than Black for a bit, because I really don't know how to express myself when it comes to it that well. I've tried so many times.
Because like you said, I picked it up because we watched the first episode in anime, and I was kind of intrigued by this world, this dynamic of all these people, and like the concept of contractors intrigued me, and they're like literally that they could have literally any superpower, but then they have a price that they have to pay to varying degrees. And I watched all of it. I enjoyed all of it, and it's obviously it's not in my top 5, but it's still one of my favorite anime. Like I would put it quite high up. I don't know exactly where it would go, but I enjoyed it a lot. Also, I maybe don't understand the ending to your extent, Lewis, but I still think the ending's good. Like I'm surprised to hear that people didn't like the ending. Like
I'll admit
it's satisfactory.
It's definitely more they didn't understand what happened more than they didn't like it. I feel like it was quite easy to understand, if I'm to be honest. But like that's not me trying to show off. That's me just saying that I got what this was about.
I mean, I enjoyed the show. I think the moment that I really connected with it was because the show does the thing where it's like it kind of does a story over 2 episodes. So each 2 episodes is its own story.
It's a dual episodic, which is weird. Very weird.
It works really well for it.
Yeah, it does. And the moment that I connected with it properly, when I that was the moment where I was like, I'm now fully invested in the show, was the episode arc where it's the police investigator woman and the main character go to that fancy party.
The fancy party with the police commissioner's old best friend.
Yeah.
They meet for the first time.
With the elf!
Yes, with Wei. It's like, hey, and Wei. With the elf who can make his blood explode. And he wants to murder his boss because she'll never be happy unless she's relying on someone.
In one of the weirdest price pays itself kind of ones.
Yeah, which is
he got really lucky with that. He got really lucky. Sorry, Alastair, just on a quick tangent. That's exemplified most with Amber, who can travel back in time, and in exchange she becomes younger. And at one point she offhandedly mentions the Heaven's War, which was a major event she did several times before she got it right. Again, just it's the fact that in this show people will do things behind the scenes that you don't even know about, but it's happening, and I really like that part of the show, and that's exemplified there, where it turns out practically all the events of the show have been orchestrated by a character trying again and again to get it perfect, because she wants her boyfriend back. That's literally it.
So, just like going back to, it's like for me, like the police investigator woman was the person that I personally got the kind of like anchor to with the show, because all the other characters you follow are contractors, and they don't really show emotion, because that's kind of how that's just the nature of them being contractors. So the fact that she was the human anchor was the person that I most like anchored to in the show. And from then that point, not that I wasn't invested before, but that was the moment where I was like, okay, now I'm fully invested. And that was the moment where I stopped watching it I stopped watching, going through it slowly, like the 2 episodes at a time, and actually binge watched the rest of it.
Same reason I really liked Guy. He was just a
Yes.
guy
Inspector
in the
Guy.
show, who just kind of bumbles his way through it and accidentally walks in on major plot details because he does.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I don't really
Yeah.
know what to say. It's just that, as you said,
No,
the
you
world
see my
is very.
problem, right? Like, yeah, it's the world. In my opinion, narrative comes in a few different aspects, and in order of importance, it goes tone, setting, characters, plot. And it's impossible to describe Darkland Black because what it does perfectly is tone. The whole thing is just like it just. I almost describe it as it wallows in perfection. Would be the way that I put it, where every tone is absolutely perfect, but every character is consistently just on the edge of just wondering what they're doing, soliloquizing, discussing philosophy. The character will is just as easily electrocute someone as he will open a door to tell them to go away, and that character is never seen again, and you don't really know about them, I guess.
It's a perfect show to explore what it is and isn't to be human.
Which is the whole theme of the show.
Yeah, exactly. And it does it perfectly. It sits down and goes, this is what it is to be human, but at the same time, it also talks about what it isn't like to be human. And it's something that a lot of shows and video games and movies that try and talk about that forget. They talk about what is it to be human. That's all well and good, because Darker Than Black goes, well, what's it like not to be human then? What makes something not a human? And it does it perfectly.
The perfect arc for that is where Yin discovers that she used to be a Norwegian pianist, and she rejects that aspect for humanity because she doesn't want to be that.
Yeah, she decides she doesn't want to be more human. She's fine with how she is.
Yeah, my experience, Darkland Black does hold a special place for me. Like, it's not in my top 5. I'd say it's 7 or 8. But the whole experience of watching it was really nice because just Lewis was around my house for a couple of weeks. We just said, "Shall we watch this at some point?" And it was just every night 2 episodes. So we'd get an arc done. We'd sit there 40 minutes, watch them back to back, and then just talk about them for a while. And that was absolutely lovely. I think the part of the series that really sold it to me was when we got to I forgot her name. Let's tell me, the one who had to drink the blood of children, Hayes' friend from the old days. Havoc. That was the arc that was just like, it was really early on in the series, so I was invested, for like 6 episodes in. That was absolutely great. It's just that really sold me. It's just like, this is these supposedly emotional characters. This is someone who clearly shows not want an actual needs and wants, doesn't want to do that thing that's been forced on them, and they are dying because of it. We also get introduced to fan favorite November 11.
Fan favorite Area 11.
I said it, I know.
Fan favorite November 11, voiced by Troy Baker, of all people, in his most fantastic British accent. November 11, who at one point in the show just dies.
He just dies.
He muses upon the fact that he's paying his contract right before he dies, and then he dies. And that's him. Done. This is also the same episode where we introduce the fact that Hayes looking for his sister Pi, which is the kind of perfect Cowboy Bebop-esque thread of logic that connects all the plots together, because toward that second arc, you now know Hay is actually just after his sister. Hay's after his sister, Amber's after Hay. It's just...
And it also shows that Hay is very much fallible as a character, because he tries with everything he's got to save Havoc when he finds out no, she doesn't want, she just wants to live at this point. She doesn't want to be a contractor. She just wants to be human again. And it's just and he can't manage it, and that's really both humanizing and dehumanizing the way that he deals with it. He just has to move on.
Have we all finished Darker Than Black?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I hold in my mind probably the highest accolade of character art going to Hay, when at the end of the series it's revealed he's not a contractor.
Yeah, you pulled the wool over me on that one for a good long while, asshole.
Yeah, he's not a contractor. Pi is a contractor who's been inside of him all along, metaphorical or whatever. And he's not a contractor. He's so human. And right at the end of the show, he breaks down and admits that he doesn't want to be a contractor. He hates killing people. He just wants his sister back. And then he changes his mind. Probably the most human thing of all. It's the reason why I like Shinji so much. He changes his mind. And Hei changes his mind, and then he leaves. And he can never be with Amber, but you get the feeling that he loved Amber too. And just it's as I say, it's a show where you wallow. It's wallowing in perfection. Like every emotion in it is somehow like pining or regretful. People miss the stars. People miss the moon. People miss like the very last plot arc. I don't know if you remember it, Hugh, with Guy. Is where he's got the mission from to do the homework of the little guy, where he used to go around and ask people what people think of the Gates contractors and what they remember of the night when everything changed. And I don't think it's any coincidence in the last episode you are put face to face with, what do you think about the past, everyone? I think this. I miss that. Things are better now. Yes. Meanwhile, in parallel, hey, I don't want to kill people. I miss my sister. I love you, hey. I love you too. It's time for us to go, isn't it? Yes. Goodbye. Done! Series finished! Nothing else. Done. Like, just... It got it. It got the ephemeral it. And that's why I'll always love it. It's not exciting. That's what I like about it in some ways. The best fight scene of the show is when he fights Elf Dude, and where he ziplines through a window, throws a knife at him, Elf Dude throws blood at him, he electrocutes the blood, and we're done. That's it. that's your fight scene.
You win!
Yeah, done with janky jazz going in the background, which like fits in the most weird way possible. And last thing, before we move on, the very last thing, I love the way this show names things, because every single episode has got this absurdly long title, like a light novel. But it reminds me of poetry every time I see it, and like the philosophy, just of everything. And I like the way that, because in most shows, like the last episode is always like the last episode of Fate Zero is Fate Zero, last episode of Unlimited Blade Works is Unlimited Blade Works, the last episode of Darker Than Black is Does the Black Reaper Dream of Dreams That Are a Shade Darker Than Black? Which is just like, okay, there's the poem that's inspired all of this. Just like wondering, does he have thoughts in his mind that are darker than the shade of black? And like, it's just, it just connects it all together. It's like poetry, it rhymes.
Can the Reaper both prevent and or cause a double genocide in a single move?
And he decides not to! That's the most human thing of all. I'll move on now. We should talk about Fate.
Yeah, Fate Cast Part 4, guys. That's my thing. Fate Zero. Well, bugger. We were all a bit emotionally invested in that last one, weren't we?
No one was emotionally invested in Darker Than Black. What are you talking about?
No idea. We like Fate, guys. Well, we all like Fate Zero, specifically.
I love Fate Zero. Genna Ibuchi, please.
Your love of documented.
My love of documentaries has been Genna Ibuchi'd.
Your love of Genna Ibuchi has been well documented, as has your love of Fate Zero. I want to hear why Joe likes it.
There are two pieces of media that I will always, like, straight up say I consider masterpieces. The first, music by Yoko Shimomura. The second, Fate Zero. Those are the only ones I will say straight up. I cannot find anything wrong with them. I know other people will point out things that they think are wrong with them. I just can't, like, everything just seems to enhance it for me. I love the info dump of the first episode. I like the amount of setup. I love every single character in the series. Maybe bar Assassin, but that was never... Assassins are boring. But I just couldn't take a single, like, second away from it when I was there. It was just... I was randomly just browsing through internet stuff, and it just came up one day. I was just like, yeah, sure, I'll watch this. Done. The entire series was over in a night. I did not get a single bit of sleep, and I just... The second I was finished, I went back and watched the first 2 episodes again. That was just it. I was just immediately sold on everything the series had to offer. Every character, every bit of music, every frame. It was absolutely beautiful, all of it. It just came together. And I haven't gotten that just into anything ever since. I don't really have the words for it. It's just, and the rest of the Fate series like has its ups and downs of like, it dabbles in everything, but this is probably the best thing I can say. It's just like you don't need to know a single damn thing about any other part of the franchise. It's just on its own the best piece of media I've ever had the fortune of being exposed to, and it'll never go away from me. Ever.
I watched it under similar circumstances. After Joe told me to watch it for a couple of years, I watched it all in one evening. Sounds good fun.
I watched it because I decided to get into the Fate franchise, and then I realized this is the reason why everyone likes the Fate franchise.
Yep, that is the reason. I will say that Fate Zero and Darker Than Black are the only anime I'd give a 10 out of 10. In God's honest heart. There's two of the perfect ones.
I watched Fate Zero for the first time. Was like, oh fuck! It was one I bought on offer in HMV back when I thought HMV was going to shut down, and I watched the first episode and immediately went, because this was during the time that living at home, and I watched a bunch of stuff with my dad. I was like, oh, we'd love this. This is the sort of thing that's like we'd really get on and watch together. Let's check out the dub, because my dad always preferred dubs. So I checked out the dub, and despite having so many good voice actors, I ended up skipping through and turning around and going, dear God, that's bad.
It's some pretty bad dub work.
It is a bad
Very
dub.
bad dub work.
And then went back to the sub and proceeded to present it to my dad. We watched a few episodes that night. The next day I'd finished the whole thing on my own. Because I just could not wait.
It's just gloriously good.
So at this point, I'm going to address my elephant in the room. So my unpopular and massively unpopular opinion. So Fate Zero, I will start with this. So Fate Zero is, I would say, technically, and I would agree, is the best Fate that's ever been made. However, the question that I pose myself is, which one do I love more? And for me, I fell in love with Unlimited Blade Works more. The reason for this is because Unlimited Blade Works has something that Fate Zero doesn't, and that is has a main No.
What do you mean Sakura shows up for a few frames?
Go on.
Has an actual main cast of characters that you follow on their adventure rather than looking at everybody equally, which Fate Zero does, and I agree that is a very good like for Fate Zero that works. That's the whole thing. Like it's nice that you actually see the Grail War in its entirety and whatnot. But for me personally, I'd rather go on an adventure with a cast of characters that I like. And the fact is, I like going on this thing and watching Shiro and Rin and Saber go through this this whole experience together as a group, and their emotional bonds connecting, and the relationship between Rin and Shiro forming, and all of that stuff. That makes me fall in love with the show more. Not that Fate Zero, I would agree, is the best technically, and it is the better show. However, I didn't fall with it as much, which is why I prefer Unlimited Blade Works. And I will also say this now, knowing how various routes go, I still haven't really seen all of. Obviously, I don't really know how all of the Heaven's Feel route goes, so I'm not quite sure where that will fit in my list later on. But if the Fate route got an actual proper adaptation by Ufotable or something and was actually done properly, that would probably be my favorite Fate anime, because it is by nature the happiest route with the happiest ending. And I like happy endings.
Happiness
Yes,
will be your downfall.
it's soppy, but I don't like. That's the thing. Is I enjoy a lot of shows that go like dark, depressing, and whatnot. But I don't. When I watch a show, I want to at the end of it, I want to feel happy. Like I don't watch a show to feel depressed or sad or angry. I watch a show to feel happy. And I feel like the Fate route would do that the most to me. The issue is there hasn't really been a very good adaptation of it. But yeah, that's just my piece on why I prefer Unlimited Blade Works over the other two. And I mean, to be honest, if you want to hear mine and everybody else's, well, sadly Joe wasn't on that podcast, but we have an entire fucking podcast about Fate where we obviously gush everything about it in every single different form in various voice all of our opinions.
Tis long and effective. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I'm gonna share my piece on Phase Zero here, just because I've done it before on that exact podcast a lot.
Yeah, it's just I think one of the best things for me, like you say, Alastair, it focuses on every character almost entirely equally. I do love that. It's just like I like the lack of a main character. Obviously, there is a main character. In fact, that Kirisugu and Saber get more time as things go on, because obviously people die when they are killed. But yes, I had to throw that in somewhere. But it's just, I think my favorite aspect is just it's almost like, I don't know if a character study is the right way of putting it, but I just like it's always everyone's discussing their different views on things, like what does it mean, what does chivalry mean between Saber and Lancer, what does it mean to just be a hero of justice in Kiritsugu's style compared to, well, how does the Grail interpret what he thinks? Just every single time characters are just talking to each other. It just, I don't even know if even tension is the right word, but I always just felt something dragging me over to each character's point of view whenever they started talking about their views, and it just really hit hard for me every single time. I was just enthralled by every section of it.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, and I'll drag up Lewis's points, even if he won't, of the first episode genuinely does 40 to 50 minutes of exposition and has a scene where there are two characters literally walking in circles around another, explaining the entire background.
The infamous circle scene, yes.
Show, and it lasts about 5 minutes, and it has never had like that. It's just so interesting and so intense and so enthralling in a scene where you have two people with wine just walking around one guy explaining the background of a show.
It's just amazing. Like I don't know any other shows that have made that much of an info dump that engaging. It's just, yeah, it's amazing.
I do have to say the one thing that Fate does really, really well, and this is true for the entire Fate franchise, is the thing that gets me is just the character designs of all the servants. Like, they're just all designed so fucking well that I like. There's a reason I play Grand Order. Like, I just like the servants, and I just want to know more about them and just collect them as my, stamp book of servants.
Yeah, it definitely tickled my love of everything historical, mythological, and absolute bullshit. It's wonderful.
But back to more Phase Zero stuff. I will say, like I was saying, thank you for mentioning it, Ben. But I don't want to. I just don't want to, because I could go on for fucking forever about Gen Ibuchi's bullshit. Fucking, I'm surprised Madoka Magica didn't make it on his list, actually. But
I'm only on episode 6, I'm afraid.
Right, okay, you haven't got to the good bit.
No.
But basically, the thing which I will say about Phase Zero, the reason I'd always give it a 10 out of 10 is because it is the perfect character action show I've ever seen, where every bit of action is done by the characters. Whenever there isn't any kind of physical conflict, there's always a social conflict. Like, even in that very first establishing scene in the middle of the lore discussions, there is still a social conflict going on, where there's clearly sides happening and jostling for control of Kirei, and Kirei himself trying to carve out his own little piece, and just conflict kind of rules that show, which is the point, because it's a 7-way 2-player deathmatch, which means that Yeah, for me, it will always be the perfect character action because it's not willing to pull punches. There isn't a main. I mean, as you said, Joe, there is, in terms of screen
A
time,
quote unquote main character.
there's a quote unquote main character, but at the same time, certainly not a favorite. I mean, I know that Ben's favorite team, I believe, is Waver and Ryder, as I recall correctly.
Yes.
Meanwhile, my favorite team was always
Carrier and
Berserker.
Hotspot.
It was always Berserker and Carrier.
Favorite character goes to Diamond for me, as you all well know.
And that's just it. And we've all got our favorite teams, which means that clearly there was not a protagonist because otherwise people would for the protagonist. I'm sure those people do, and I do like Kiritsugu, but he wasn't the one I was rooting for on my first, second, or even third watch through of the entire thing. So I think that's where the strength of Fate Zero lies: its ability to convey conflict as a character action show, and that's why it's definitely a 10 out of 10. It loses out to Fate Zero just because Fate Zero means more to me, but yeah. Anyway, Ben.
Okay, my number one is a show that I have a lot of nostalgia towards because it's the first anime I ever watched, but also the fact that it's a rare one where the first anime I ever watched still holds up as something amazing and brilliant in my eyes, and that is Gunslinger Girl. Gunslinger Girl is, simply put, a show about hopeless children who are granted another shot of life by giving cybernetic enhancements on the chance of their death, and they are taken by an agency and trained to essentially become assassins, agents of the government, and are given a handler or fratello or sibling in English that will look after them. And the show focuses on the relationship between the girls and each other, the girls and their handlers, and just everything that goes on in between. Now, from the description, it might sound more shonen action filled, ends with the big fight to garner sympathy using children in distress, but they win out in the end. It's not that sort of show. You look more at it and you see the violence isn't heroic. The anguish isn't contrived. The suffering in it isn't a spectacle. It's a sincere depiction aiming to inform as much as it is entertain. It's not a show for everyone, no, because it's muted and slow, and it focuses on a lot of psychological interactions between the characters. But it really is the opposite of dramatic. Many of the strongest feelings and most painful and joyful moments you'll see in the show are marked with little more than slight adjustments of characters' eyes or mouths to reactions to things that have just happened within it. Seeing this characterization, this humanization going through in contrast to everything they're doing, the characters, you've got to watch them to really understand them, and sometimes even the significance of what's happened doesn't come to light until several hours or days, whatever, when you're still mulling over it, and suddenly it clicks in your brain what's happened and what's gone on. I'm not saying that by this there isn't any proper character interaction. Far from it. Like, some of the show's greatest moments come from not the action sheet scenes in it, which, to talk about, are absolutely fantastic. It's been described as porn for gun nuts due to the way that they handle guns, every piece of it immaculately, and have it perfectly built. The way that each gun works is fantastic throughout the thing, and works as it should in reality. And every scene is carried out with just the utmost perfection that you'd expect from this, with them taking the damage for their character, but still shooting, the tactical advantages in the fight, and it just works so well in those action scenes. But now it's the characters and their interactions that really sell out even more, because they just all have such a depth, be it the relationships between the girls and each other, or the girls and the handlers, or a mix of all of the above. Like, you'll see some that are treated by the handlers as an older brother, they're the younger sister, and others they're just a tool for killing, and you see the way this affects them physically and mentally, and it's such a real physical reaction to see in the show, and the consequences are just so heavy hitting and such what you'd in some ways expect and in other ways not. of those characters because it's a natural progression from the way they've been treated and what's happened. But seething beneath the interplay lies something wrong. The situation is demented. The usage of the innocence of the girls in this fashion is more grotesque. It's a horror that really comes to the surface in the whole show, but continually darkens the atmosphere and deepens the melancholy the entire way through. The magnitude of all of this cannot be properly expressed, because for any other reason you can't put any decency behind this, because they're young girls and these handlers are making them do horrible things. And this show is not so much as to make their suffering as cheap as voyeurism for the viewer. It puts more behind it than that. The result of just putting all this emphasis behind that is a deeply haunting series. And it has an identification of loss and pain, of impending morality, of a sense that things are not quite right in the world. While the show is sustained by its well-crafted details, they don't obscure this point. What happens is less important than why it happens, or that it's possible that what is happening at all in this society. It lacks its lack of plot and antagonist is a fundamental reflection of this entire thing. It isn't about resolving the handlers' stories, for there's no resolution to be found in this story. It's about the girls and their handlers and the interactions between them, contrasting everything they have to do and are forced to do on a daily basis. If this was the full extent of the show, it would be worthy of praise for such a brilliant way of handling the subject matter, like just a grim tragedy of expendable innocence. However, there's a deeper layer even to it than that, which all of this sets up as a backdrop. There's no way I can really describe this without sounding properly cryptic, in a way, of lack of a better form, but it's more like a meditation, a reflection upon this unmitigated suffering and affirmation that there's something beyond that suffering for every character. I wish I could put it into words properly, but like Lewis, I feel
I know the feeling.
there's no way I can properly put my feelings and the way this is into words, and if I tried, I would inevitably fail at it. But in the end, Gunslinger Girl is more than a sum of its parts. In execution, it's superb. In message, it's absolutely sublime. I find it deeply resonant, subtle, tragic, and fucking beautiful. I could watch this show 1,000 times over, and I would still want to rewatch it, and that's why this is my favourite anime of all time.
I find it interesting that it was your first as well, if I'm being honest. That's the most interesting bit for me, really, from a sort of personal point of view.
Yeah, it's one that every time I go to rewatch and get ready to be disappointed, get ready for that moment of it's not going to live up to what I remember, but every time it does. And in fact, after the first time, because I was quite young when I watched it the first time, it exceeded all those expectations because I saw this new layer to the show.
It's because has anyone else seen Gunslinger Girl, by the way? Because I've seen the whole thing.
I have been meaning to watch it, and as you say, you've had to jump through so many hoops to watch.
I jumped through hoops to watch that fucking thing in dub, I'll put it that way, yeah.
You genuinely went on the month after they took the dub off Netflix.
Yeah. And then some work was involved in seeing it. I definitely say it's a very good show at portraying the relationship between the sort of handler and the girls. It's a very dehumanizing show, I think is the big thing for me. The girls are definitely treated as tools, and the guy who treats his girl as not a tool is seen as a bit weird. He's not like distrusted or anything, just the fact that he's a bit odd. So I think it's definitely got a lot of themes of dehumanization going through it, particularly because I think the girls themselves have been the girls themselves uniquely are brainwashed, but know they've been brainwashed.
Yeah, they've been brainwashed, but it's been for the sakes of their life, and so they don't really think of the fact that they're doing things without question. They more think my life has been saved. And with regards to the handler, people look at him weird. Like there are others that do also care about theirs. Like for example, the guy with the Queen of Pasta story. He originally cared about his the same way that the main guy does his.
But just over time,
Over time he hits that point where you have to stop looking at them like that because you're sending them into gunfights, and you can't look at them like a child or a younger sister and still willingly send them into their death and not come out unfazed by it. So you either harden yourself or you separate that level between yourselves so you don't feel the impact of it. And that's why this entire thing is such a comment on characterization and the relationships between all of them and the way that people deal with these situations and everything in it. And I will stand by infinitely that the final scene of that show is the most perfect way I have ever seen a show ended, with just the most humanizing, innocent moment for a group of people that the next day will go out and go and kill someone. And it doesn't end with a fact of trying to butter it up in anything different or anything like that. It just gives you a moment of just seeing these people as pure children enjoying themselves on a beautiful night, and you know that afterwards they're going to have to go out and murder people again and again. And that just emphasizes the whole point that it's not about an ending or a story. It's about the characters, them coming together, and their relationship behind it all.
Yeah, I concur. It definitely is effective. I think that the manga is probably a fair bit better from what I've seen, but it is an effective end to the anime. The manga goes on quite a significantly large amount longer than the actual
a lot
anime.
longer. Yeah,
I hear that season 2 is also not terribly good, similar to DTB.
I've not watched season 2. Like you haven't watched Darker Than Black.
Yeah.
I have read the manga and finished the manga. I enjoyed the manga greatly. I still prefer my way in my head that season 1 ends and that's the ending for me.
But is season 2 allowed to exist? Like, because obviously
No.
no one allows its existence.
No, not in my head.
Okay, it's that level.
It's not Darker Than Black level where it compromises the characters.
No, but
season
season 2 isn't good.
Gotcha.
And season 2 and the manga as a whole retcon something that makes the ending that extra bit special for me.
Okay, so watch season 1, then read everything.
Watch season 1 and then either leave it there or read everything.
Season 1 ends on a perfectly fine note.
I'd say end it at season 1, but if you want to read, the manga is very good. The manga is very good, but I still think the ending of season 1 is a perfect ending for the story it's trying to tell.
I think you'd want to read more of the manga because Henrietta is clearly intended to be the main sort of girl.
You're wrong!
No, but from the anime's perspective.
Oh, from the animes, yes.
It's told from her point of view. I'm perfectly aware of who the main girl eventually ends up being after the bloodbath.
What?
Yes.
Nothing.
Nothing. So you'd read on if you're more interested in what happens to Henrietta and others.
Okay.
It's a fantastic show, and as I say, I can't recommend it to everyone due to slower pace and the type of show that it is, but I think it is a masterpiece, and it's one of the few shows that I loved the first time I watched it, and every other time I've watched it, I've only loved it more.
Alastair?
Right. My number one show. Interesting enough how we talked about endings. This show has probably the best and most satisfying ending I've ever seen to an anime ever made. And the show I'm talking about is Assassination Classroom. And this show has literally everything in it that I could want in a show. The fact that it has a great cast of characters, it has a interesting premise and storyline. It also has wonderful emotional moments, wonderful comedy. It has a wonderful payoff at the end that ties it all up neatly in a wonderful bow, and it's just fantastic. I would say season one probably. I would say season one might have some slight issues with the fact that it starts off quite episodic, but once it like gets going, it really does. And season two is just fan fucking tastic to the point of like it just is just another level. As a show that starts off with the premise of a being that you have to kill by the end of the year, otherwise he will blow up the earth. The ending, of course, is going to be important, which it is. And the thing with the show that's really interesting is every single part of the show always has a double dynamic. It's in the plot, it's in the premise, but it's also the show itself. It has two major things that it does. So in the plot, obviously, you know, students double as students and assassins, and the teacher doubles teacher and target. But the show itself has the two aspects of one, you have the whole assassination aspect of the fact that the kids have to try and assassinate this unkillable thing that the entire government have tried to kill in numerous different ways and can't. And you have that like dynamic to it, but also you have the other dynamic of where you have a generally really good teacher trying to show these kids who have been told up until this point that they are shit, they are nothing, they do not deserve to live, and they are the lowest of the low, and they'll never get anywhere in life, and show them that they actually have something about them that's worthwhile. Everybody has something that they can do, that they're good at, and if they try hard enough, they'll be able to do just what they want to do like everybody else. It's just like, it's really well done on several different levels. It has so many layers to it that it's impossible for me to go through each and every single one of them. The characters are fantastically written, not only the main characters, but the side characters. The entire class, each person in that class is given a moment to shine, even if it's small. Each one is given a moment of screen time. Obviously, the main cast is given more, but they're all, at least, you all feel that this is a class of kids who you feel like they're all like, each one has an individuality and their own personality and their own struggles and triumphs and whatnot. And Koro Sensei is just fantastically written as a character. There's so many things that he works on so many different levels, and as I said in a previous podcast, the dub is also fantastic just because it just nails fucking Koro Sensei as well. I'm pretty sure he's nailed in the sub as well, but it's just really good. The thing is, I can't say much about why I like the ending so much, because that would be probably the biggest spoiler I could possibly ever give to anything ever. So I'm not going to say why I like the ending so much, but it just gives a really satisfying conclusion to the whole thing. It's good.
I like Nagisa. It's a really good viewpoint of the show. I think the early episodes definitely benefit a lot from having them there.
Yeah, Nagisa is definitely a really good main character. Interestingly enough, the reason Nagisa exists the way he is originally he wanted to make the main character a girl, but the studio said no, if you make it a guy, it will sell better. So he basically turned Nagisa into a trap.
Yeah, he just changed nothing.
He made the trap.
But it's still really interesting that they use that plot point of the fact that they basically put this in the entire arc with his mother in, of the fact that his mother always wanted a girl, and just makes Nagisa be, and like, you know, doesn't let Nagisa cut his hair and makes Nagisa put dresses on and shit, because she's always like, I wish I had a girl and all of that shit. So they do use it. It's not like it's just thrown in. It's still used to a great degree, and it gives an interesting side plot to Nagisa's backstory and all of that stuff. But yeah, every single character just feels like they're really well used, and it's not squandered. And also, as I said, the entire anime is also finished. It's the entire story, which is rare.
A rarity in these parts.
It's a great example of a show building up through comedy, as well, more than anything, let's just say through comedy and occasional drama. But it builds up, in every one of those moments you can look back and you can see those moments that were comedy, but once you hit that point, you see they meant so much more, and you can see it along the way as well if you're really like looking out and paying attention to stuff. But it really just emphasizes even more the ending and everything that happens, and just makes it it's just such a perfect ending for every character. Like, it's a show that manages to have so many characters and finish all of their arcs almost.
Yeah, it's impressive what it manages to do on that level of the fact it balances so many characters really well. I had a train of thought and I've forgotten what I was going to say. I was going to say something.
That's all right. To be another thing which I just wanted to talk about, which is kind of rare, is that I really like the animation in this show. The style certainly stuck out because it's very colorful. I mean, I know that it's like not exactly an anime trope to have, anime characters have blue hair, but I like how colorful Kuro-sensei is. I like the fact that he looks like a McDonald's toy gone wrong.
Oh my god, that's so apt.
You know what I mean, right? Like, Teacher Octopus, just like fucking, He just looks like one of those character designs gone a bit wrong. I like a colorful. It's like I like the fact that everyone uses Nerf guns, basically, and like little foam daggers. And I think there's
because Nerf. Although if they didn't use Nerf guns, Lewis, it wouldn't be legal.
It would not be legal because they're underage, so they'd have to black them out like they did in JoJo. But I thought that joke was funny. No one's laughed still. I'm assuming that's Thank you. But the other, there's a certain childlike playfulness to the entire thing by the fact that it is shooting a smiling octopus with Nerf guns.
Well, yeah, I remember what my train of thought is now. It is a show where, even though it gets to these things of very serious topics, of the fact that, yes, they are trying to kill this guy, but it does constantly remind you, it still goes back to the fact that these are just kids. These are just kids trying to find a future for themselves.
Yeah, it's a constant reminder about their age. Especially because of Kuro-sensei's actual backstory and the relevance that, that character has toward the kids.
At this point, I'm going to ask Lewis, have you actually finished the show now?
I've not finished it, no, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I just, I know a fair bit about it, thanks to memes and watching most of Season 1. It's alright, I'll get round to it. And with that... No, it's very good.
Huey!
Hugh, tag in.
Tag. Slap.
Akira Baton!
Baton. Dropped it. Oh god, it's going underneath the table with the other stuff.
Oh shit,
no.
Hugh, not the table!
Oh,
He's wearing his AirPods, he can't hear us.
Oh no.
That joke that was probably caught.
Oh no. Beeps everywhere. What's happening? It's non-Biuri.
Yay, finally, my hypersexualized anime.
Please describe Hugh, because I really like this anime.
It's just about a girl that moves to the countryside.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what it's about.
Can I summarize it, Hugh?
Go on.
It's Last of the Summer Wine with primary school kids.
Pretty much.
Oh my god, that's apt. I've also realised that this entire cast has once again become me sitting there going, I like that anime.
Yeah, no, that has become your catchphrase once again, Ben.
I mean, I'm not going to hold this one against you, though, Ben. That was literally the point going in.
You're right.
Every other time, though,
Anyway,
no, you're
Hugh,
scum.
please tell me why you like non-Biuri.
I mean, it's not really an emotional thing, like the rest of you guys. Like, I'm kind of like Joe, and the idea is just I like things I like because I do.
All of our number ones have kind of turned out that way. It feels.
Sort of. It's so. I think the reason why I really like this show is it's the first anime I ever loved. Which is a really weird sentence to use, considering that since then there have been other shows where I've sat down and gone, I love this. But this was the first one I ever sat down, watched, and fell in love with. It's the only one that I've ever religiously waited for it to air on Crunchyroll when the second season was airing. Sat and watched. I moved my laptop into a different room because my internet in my house is so bad, and I'm like, I want to watch this in HD. So I moved it closer to the router. And it's the only thing I've ever done that for. The other ones I'm like, I'll watch it in 480. But this was like, no, this needs to be 1080. So I walked away with it. It's the only show that's ever made me cry happily, where there's an episode called We Went and Looked for Fireflies, and they find fireflies, and it's really nice and happy, and I cried a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, this is nice, and just, I don't know, it just kind of has this special place in my heart of just, it is the piece of media or the thing that I can go back to whenever I'm feeling a bit upset or a bit down and be like, this is guaranteed to make me happier. And that's why it's my favourite.
That's really sweet, man.
And on that note, it's 20 to midnight. I've got a full day at work tomorrow. Please, can we go to bed?
In which case, I have a simple last comment, and
Go on.
that's, I got you! I got you all! Before all this, I messaged Lewis and Alastair with what I thought was everyone's way of thinking and their preferences for anime, and you all lived up to it perfectly.
That's nice.
I'd like to point out he cheated with me because unlike him and
I
Alistair,
did cheat
I'm
with
sta-
Lewis.
Yeah, because unlike him and Alistair, who flip-flop like a pair of fucking tuna, I'm stable with what I like.
Hey, but Lewis, I know that you like your shit.
I know I do. I know that you know that I do.
Hey, it wasn't shows I got, it was type of shows.
Listener, whatever day you're listening to us on, statistically one of us, I hope you're having a good one. Well done to making it to the end of it. Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Thanks you for asking. Oh, that's nice.
I wasn't asking, mate.
How are things going? Oh, that's really good to hear as well.
Oh, that's grand.
At the current time of recording this podcast, it is May the 9th, so I'd just like to say to you viewers, Happy Piccolo Day.